Ask any Aussie and they'll tell ya that every good story begins with the phrase, "So there I was." And although this story doesn't start with that phrase, it will have a few "so there I was" moments in there somewhere. Hi, my name is Tim Plenty, and today I'm going to tell you about how I got into photography and about some of the adventures I've had along the way. I can't remember when it started, but when I was young, I used to get into the hallway cupboard and go through Mum and Dad's camera gear and photos. When I was 12, I went to Thailand with a church group, and the group leader gave me a spare camera to borrow. The trip sparked my interest, and when I got back, Mum gave me one of her old point-and-shoot cameras that she no longer used. It only shot in panorama, but I didn't mind because now I had a camera of my own. And when I was 16, I went on a 2-day fishing trip with Dad and some guys from the church on a river that was full of crocs. On the last morning, I saw a massive croc just cruising up the middle of the river, and I knew I had to get a shot. I have to say, I was disappointed when the photo come out because you couldn't see a thing, but Mum, on the other hand, thinking I was trying to capture a reflection, absolutely loved it. It was at that point that something sparked in my mind, and I haven't looked back since. In 2005, I met this bloke named James. I introduced him to my sister, and before long, he was my brother-in-law. Oh yeah, he's also a storm chaser. I had always wanted to get a photo of lightning, so I went out on a few chases with him. My current camera just wouldn't cut it, so I had to get a digital. I got a basic one, but it still had a manual mode. One night, we were at James's house for my brother's birthday. He checked the radar and it appeared there was a storm in the distance. Now James lived in an apartment block that had roof access, and I just so happened to have my camera gear there with me. We set up on the roof, and although the storm was a long way off, I got my first photo of lightning. I had taken one photo of lightning, so now I knew everything about storm chasing, right? A few weeks later, I was out with some mates. There was a storm heading our way. I was the only local in the group. The rest were from other parts of Australia. As the storm got closer, the others decided it was time to take cover in their cars. Now I don't know if it was lack of knowledge about storm chasing or just stupidity, but I decided to stay out, saying, "Ah, you're just a bunch of southerners." Are you ready? So there I was, standing in the open, wanting to get the best picture of lightning, when all of a sudden, the whole sky lit up. For a fraction of a second, it was like daylight, and the thunder was deafening. I don't think I touched the ground on the way back to the car, and I left my camera gear outside. My confidence was growing, and my sister was getting married and needed a photographer, and it just so happened that I was free that weekend. I had a really good car. Okay, I had a good car. Alright, so I had a car that was about as reliable as a weather forecast, so I couldn't go too far in case I didn't make it back. But in 2007, that all changed. That's right, I got a Toyota Corolla, and it had everything. Aircon, leather interior, mag wheels, and a big 1.8. Okay, sorry, getting a bit sidetracked here. My point is, I wasn't restricted to staying within towing distance of home anymore. It was about this time that I was working 2 jobs. A day job, working alongside customs and quarantine with cargo. It was alright, and I got to see some interesting things. But the night job, no. Not that kind of night job. My night job was as a baggage handler, and I soon noticed a difference in flexibility between the two jobs. I also like working with aircraft a lot more. My day boss went on 3 months leave, and the company sent a manager to replace him, and things didn't go so well. I was having a really bad day, but while I was out the office, I saw a storm brewing up in the distance. I thought to myself, I'd rather be chasing that than stuck in this job. Then a quote by Howard Thurman came to mind. Don't ask yourself what the world needs. Ask yourself what makes you come alive, and go do that, because what the world needs is people who have come alive. So I quit my day job and chased my dreams while working my dream job. I was now able to travel further and more often. The only thing I needed to do was upgrade my camera. So I did. It was great. It came with 2 lenses, it was lightweight, it was compact, and I had no idea what I was doing. I had some problems learning how to use it. The last camera was simple, but this was full on. I tried to recreate some of the photos I took on the previous camera, but they didn't turn out so well. I was disheartened, but I didn't have time to dwell on it because it was time to hit the road. I decided to go on a road trip around Australia, well, halfway round anyway. For me, it was like a rite of passage, just me against a great southern land. Although this trip wasn't for photography, I still got a lot of good pictures and memories. Although still unsure how to use my camera, I was inspired to get out more often. From there, I became more confident, maybe too confident. When taking photos of crocs, most of them would bolt if you got too close, and some of these were as big as 3 or 4 meters. I saw one only a couple of feet long, so I thought I could get real close. Maybe too close, because it launched at me. In my panic, I ended up on my backside, trying to get away from it, but stupidly, I thought I'd try again. Again, I ended up on my backside, this time with a croc between my legs. So there I was. See, there we go again. Sat on my backside with a grumpy croc between my legs. With a Darwin Award looming, I decided it's best if I quit while I was ahead. And arms and legs. In September 2008, I found out the airline that I'd done most of my work with was pulling out of Darwin. I'm not sure where it came from, but somehow I thought it would be a good idea to move to Perth. It was about that time that I got a friend's request on MySpace from a British backpacker. Yes, MySpace was big once. She had a sunset photo, and I commented saying, I know a place where you can get a good picture of the sun setting behind the city. Her name was Vic, and we arranged to meet up one night at a bar called The Vic. We hit it off pretty quick, and I started showing her around, but funnily enough, I never took her to that place where you could see the sunset behind the city. I had feelings growing for this girl, but it wasn't going to work. I was going to Perth for the Red Bull Air Race and a job interview. One night, I tried to explain to her that we could never be because I was about to move away. She said, "Oh, I'm moving to Perth too." Wait, she doesn't sound like that. She had booked her flight into Darwin and out of Perth, but nothing in between. So I went to Perth for the air race, and I got the job. I was all set and ready to go, but there was one last thing I needed to do. A friend had asked if I could take some graduation photos for her daughter. I couldn't refuse. The next couple of years just flew by. Moving to Perth, visiting the UK for the first time, getting engaged, and hitched, and then I knocked her up. With this little guy. After we moved back to Darwin, that is, but before we moved on to the UK. And this little guy came along. Then this pair, and photography took a back seat to some of life's other little things. But now those little things are in school full time, so I thought I'd take it up again. Which brings me to here, back in education myself, learning to be a better photographer. Where it goes from here, God only knows.